David Nahinga, I am a quantity surveyor by profession, a father of 2 boys. As a person, I love doing business. I'm an entrepreneur. I like solving problems. But I've chosen real estate and housing to be my area of focus. I'm an employer also. I come up with creative solutions to challenges that people face. So even if it is a big challenge, I try to find ways of solving it. I was born in Iten. Then we moved to Kakamega because my mother was working at Kakamega and my father was also working in Kakamega. So I went to a school called Matende Primary School. It is a village school in Kakamega town. And we used to walk there actually. But some days we used to be driven there by my father. So that was up to class 8. And then I went to Musingo High School. And then I qualified to go to Nairobi University. So the year 2000, I came to Nairobi University. The children in the village have a challenge of exposure, especially if you grew up in this locality and you went to that school and now you are aspiring to go to university and no one has gone to university. It is a strange thing. So when we used to hear our colleagues from Nairobi say campus, we were confused because we didn't know what is a campus, what is a university. We didn't know even the distinction. So for us, it was an exciting moment. Now, how do I pick what I'm going to study in a place that none of my people have been exposed to? It was a real challenge. And so for me, I said I'm going to solve a small problem that we had as a home. As a young kid, I always asked my father, where is our house? Because I wanted to point to something and say, this is our house. Because I knew this was the landlord's house. Because he used to come and they used to have like a quarrel of sorts demanding for rent. So I knew this is not our house. So I wanted a place where nobody is coming to ask us for rent. So it was like a motivation at the back of my mind in the choices I was making. As a young kid, I was that inquisitive. And I would be chased away many times because I had too many questions. And one of the most persistent questions was, where is our house? And I used to ask my father, when are we building? Even when I was passing from school, I would come and tell my mom, I've seen a parcel of land, why don't you people buy it? But I could not understand their struggle because they were educating us on a small salary and it was the reality. But that reality shaped my destiny, so to speak. But then that planted an idea in me that if I ever go to higher education and stuff, I would do building something. So when I looked at that list, I said building economics, and that's how I ended up doing building economics. Up to second year, I did not even know what it entails, because then they start teaching you things like theory of structures and this, and all I want is I just want to know, how do you build a house? That's all I wanted to get out of campus. Life faces you. You know, you are in Nairobi. Nairobi is not your home. You are a visitor. You are almost like a stranger in the city. And there are 2 options that are very clear. Either you go back home and stress your parents. And I had read a quote that time, I remember, that you should make leaning on your parents unnecessary. Okay? In fact, it should be the other way. They should be the ones who can lean on you when they face challenges. And my father had told me, go to Nairobi, upambane na wanaume wengine huko. You know, it was a very clear instruction. And he was like almost telling me that go and succeed among them. So my first challenge was where to sleep. Where do I get food and all that? So what came to my mind was I go to a prayer and fasting center in Ngong for accommodation, because you can pay and you can lodge there. But on the 4th day, I met friends who I was with in high school, introduced me to the father, and we became friends. So I moved with my things, my belongings, just a bag, to their house, and they gave me a room. And I lived there for like about 3 months or so. And then the elder brother picked me to move to his house. I would go to the cyber and go to a website called Gutenberg something and download books by Plato, Aristotle, Nicomachean Ethics, all those books, the succession of forestry, things which have no relationship to building, just philosophical things, poetry and all that. So I would go, I have 200 shillings. At that time, I think it was, the browsing cost was quite high. So I would go download the book, paste it in Word, compress, and then print. And that's where I spoiled my eyes, because now I would read through those texts to exhaustion, sleep, wake up, continue reading. That time there was no Facebook, internet, and this. I think I was not there online doing those things. But then it planted another seed in me, the being an inquisitive person, questioning things, looking for explanations of things. So my mother was the one who was seeing the problem better than myself. Introduced me to my first job, basically an attachment at Kenya Wildlife Park headquarters. So on my first day reporting to work, I was just about to enter the staff bus, and there was a doorkeeper there, and he refused that I cannot enter. He said that you do not have an EST number. That was establishment number. I was not part of the establishment. First time they gave me my salary, I took it to the cooperative society. By the time I was on the 3rd month under my permanent pay, I had already gone to the bank and gotten my first car, a Toyota 110. So I was like, now I have ticked that box. Now my other immediate goal would be to marry. And what happened is I did a church wedding at Karen, and I invited those who had something I didn't have. Engineers, senior quantity surveyors, my friends who had made it in life and all. So I had surrounded myself with successful people, and I invited them to my wedding. And they gave me so much gift that the empty house I was living in Langata and paying a lot of rent was overwhelmed with the gifts that I received. I had now learned the ropes. I had done a successful project for rangers in Manyani. I had built a project on time and within the cost. So I was now more confident, and my boss said, I can give this young man more responsibility. So he posted me to Nakuru, but it was during the dry season. And Nakuru that time, everything was drying up. And it felt horrible to go to a new place that was not in bloom. So I resigned. I asked the secretary for a piece of paper, and I wrote my resignation letter, and I said I've tendered my resignation. So that was the end of the road for me. And what I did is I went to a Homes Expo. I saw some machines from Germany, a company called Eisencraft, and I bought those machines. I think they were worth, 1,100,000. It was all the money I had gathered up to that time. I bought my machine, my initial set of machines, and I said I'm going to make beds and tables and chairs for people and windows maybe. So I said, let me focus on my own life. So I said, okay, I have one car. I think I can run another business. So I rented a small room, a small room, 3 meter by 3 meter. And I said, this is Ujenzi Bora, and it's going to be a workshop. But I had a car that time. So I said, I'm going to have a car hire business. And it was called Spinel Management Systems. So I could approach you, you give me your car, and then we write an agreement that I will pay you X amount of money every month. So I had like about 8 cars. At the peak, about 9, 10 cars. So I was in the car hire business for some time there, the workshop and the car hire business. And my car got an accident here outside my office, here on Gong Road. And I lost it. But then it reached a point where now I could not sustain a family, pay the rent for the workshop, and still survive. So I took all the tools I had bought. No, first of all, the landlord locked up the tools because I could not pay 10,000 rent. The car hire business had collapsed. So I opened a shop, I called it Goshen. So this is the business I tried to open to salvage. Now I only have furniture. So I just added shelves and I said, I'm going to have a shop. I became a shopkeeper momentarily, maybe a short period of 6 months. I used to go to Isli and buy household goods and then put 2 prices. One lower, which was slightly closer to the wholesale price, and another prevailing market price. So it had 2 prices, it had a fraction. And then I went convincing my neighbors. I told them, if you give me 5,000 shillings, because a small household spends roughly 5,000 shillings on household goods. If you give me 5,000 shillings, you can be a member of. So what happened is I really had a good number of members. So I was like, how can I get working capital without going to the bank? So I formed the shop and I reached out to the neighbors and I told them, okay, if you're a member of the shop, you will give me 5,000 shillings, 5,000. So I have 25,000 shillings. I would go to Isli, buy the goods, stock the shop with goods worth 25,000 shillings. But then maintain a record system whereby you can come and all you need to do is to show me your card and pick the items. And then I would subtract the cost of the items you've picked against the sum you gave me. And I was making a profit out of that. So the business was a good business. The only challenge was the working capital was small and my needs were many. Remember, I was paying rent, the workshop and other things. So when the workshop collapsed, I had to think again, what do I do with my life? So when I brought the tools under the bed, my wife is very religious. And she told me a scripture that is still very alive to me. It says that who lights a candle and puts it under the bed? You know, the accuracy was like 100%. I could not escape. This was me. This was my story. I had bought equipment for making furniture. The business has collapsed and the equipments were actually under the bed of the house help, because now where do I store them? So I was that person, a man who has lit a candle and has put it under the bed. As an entrepreneur, you keep learning. You fail, you take the lessons with you. I had all the furniture I could not sell, plus I had the equipment and the skill. And I had a few images of the things I had made, the wine racks and the beds and the tables, and I had collected contacts. Now what I did is I started now writing, because I realized I had taken a period where I'm not practicing quantity surveying or building any houses. So I started writing about building, about construction, about beauty, about architecture. People started asking me questions. It's like, I have a piece of land in place X. I have this. Then I'm like, life is calling me. Why should I hold back myself? So I said, I'm going to go and be employed. Because I'm going to be employed because now people are asking me, can you build for me? And I have the naivety, I don't have equipment. How do I run a construction company? I do not have the means. I do not come from a family of builders. In fact, where I am now is evidence. I'm trying to reconcile myself. So I said, okay, let me humble myself, because if people are going to serve under me, I must also learn to serve under other people and learn something about construction. I have never visited a quarry. I have never procured stones directly for myself. Remember, at Kenya Wildlife, I was in a supervisory role, sort of, just overseeing a contractor that has won at the tender. But the act of buying the materials was in the contractor's office. So I said, I'm going to get attached to a contractor in Nakuru, and then maybe I will learn the skill of building directly from a contractor. And I loved it. So I was employed there for about 7 months. I lived in Nakuru. And then I quit that job to start my own company. Now I have a company logo, I have a business card. If I give you, and I have an office. So a client gave me an opportunity to build for them a house in Twala. And it turned out very nice. It's still on my website. It's my most popular project. So I started now writing articles towards the affordable housing market. Then there was a call for people to submit proposals by the Tony Elumelu Foundation. So I put myself together and I wrote a proposal to them, and they accepted me in the program. I was given a seed capital of 500,000 shillings, which was purely an act of generosity from him. I think he's the most generous African. So what I did, I said, I am going to expand, okay? I'm going to use this money to expand the business. There's somebody who walked into my office and they said they want to build a hotel and cottages. And it was a big contract. It was a contract for 100 million shillings. Now this was a big break for my company. So we designed, that time now we needed to design the hotel, and we got to build it, and we built a few cottages. So our agenda as Ujenzi Bora now in this space is very simple. Creating beautiful spaces for people. And now there's a line, there are some lines that Shakespeare wrote, and he says that the ages of man, and then he gave, there's a child, there's a schoolboy, there's the young adult, then there is the later stages of life. And when you look at those stages that he brought up, we as builders, we want to create spaces that support all these stages of life. For example, young adults, they need homes where they can continue the life cycle, like raise their families, and a space they can retire to when they are not at work. Still, the young people need places of work. So if we need people who want to build institutions where people can work, we are in that space. So we can build for all stages of life. And we want to do things that enhance that stage that people are in their life. So if you need a nice backyard for your kitchen, we would like to support that function by creating for you spaces that you can work with. So we want everywhere we go, we want to build houses that makes the life of those people better. So we want to give you more use value than even the value of money that you give us. Because that is the only way that growth can happen. Growth only happens when you put a seed on the ground and you can get a bigger harvest than the seed that you put in. So a maize cob has like 100 or more seeds, yet you put in one. So the same with business. If you came to build through us a house costing 6 million, we want you to get like 10 million worth of a house, okay? And that is possible because then our primary goal is not even making money. Our primary goal is to create habitable, beautiful spaces that support life.